The term third world is offensive to me, bro. Because
Really?
you're talking about a subhuman.
No,
you're talking
it's not
about
that
people
it's a
who aren't as
subhuman.
developed as we are, so they're the third world.
So if you're stoning women after they've been raped,
In the Bible, bro,
no.
I'm from Iran,
Listen.
and it happens now.
Another day, another episode of Middle Ground. Hi, my name's John. I am the host of Radical Empathy, and I will be moderating today's episode between Harris supporters and Trump supporters. Our first prompt is, no matter what my candidate does, I will still vote for them.
Anybody?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said if Trump came out in a crowd and just started, yelling at people, calling them stupid, or like did something crazy that I wouldn't still vote for him. It would have to be like walk out in Times Square, shoot someone in the face kind of thing. Like it would have to be something outrageous for me to not vote for him right now, and that is only because these are the only two choices I have, which sucks for us as American people. We should have a lot more choice in this. We should have had more debates. We should have had more people involved in the debates. It would take a lot for me not to vote for him just because I care so much about securing our country and my right to own firearms.
So for me, we know Kamala's character, and so even thinking if she does the worst thing ever, would I still vote for her? Yeah, because I know the worst thing that she could do wouldn't even be the best thing that Trump does, right? Like the bars are very different. In addition to that, of course I'm gonna vote for her because Trump is such a terrible alternative. I'm afraid to see what our country would look like.
I'm voting for Kamala for pragmatic reasons. January 6th made Trump ineligible in my eyes. He's a traitor. He disrupted 200 years of peaceful transfer of power for his own selfish reasons that he now admits that he lost by a whisker. Sarcastically, according to him.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I'll go first again. Like one of these two people are getting in right now. My choice is Kamala Harris. That doesn't mean that anything that she does is going to keep that support. My biggest issue right now is the genocide going on in Gaza, propagated by both the Trump administration and the Biden administration. You could say that prior to October 7th, there was peace going on between Israel and Gaza, as I've heard a lot of Trump supporters say. That's just factually inaccurate, especially with the Abraham Accords, especially with moving the embassy to Jerusalem. These are things that I'm very critical of Trump on, and I'm still having trouble announcing my support for Kamala Harris. It was a big moral decision to even come on the show in support of her. But that's because I don't support her again. I think that Donald Trump is going to be somebody that's far worse for the country than she will be.
So, did you know that this is the lowest civilian to combatant death rate of any war in recent history? Did you know that?
Is this going to be a Gaza topic? I'm so ready to go on Gaza. I'm so ready.
That because I can't just let your word genocide go because it's not a genocide. If it was a genocide, it would have ended 2 days later and it would have been fine. Everyone would be dead.
We'll have
so
to
it's not
keep
a
it
genocide.
at that, though.
Yeah,
Just for
that's
time's
fine.
sake. But I want to hear, going back to the prompt, you came in because you disagreed.
Yeah.
You wouldn't vote for Trump unconditionally.
No, of course. I mean, I think as a moral human being that comes from a place of love with strong core values, I can't just give anyone, carte blanche that no matter what you do, you're going to have my love and support. But from, barring anything crazy like the situation that Joe mentioned, it's pretty much 100%. And actually, I am part of Jewish Voices for Trump, and I really appreciate all of the things that he's done for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel as well. So
the next prompt is, Harris beat Trump in the debate. Will the agreeers please step forward? We're all looking at you.
I'm happy to see you join us.
hey.
Unfortunately, when I watched the debate, a lot of Republicans were saying that Trump was going to completely obliterate Kamala Harris, and I was one of those people, but I'm the kind of person, I gotta be factual and honest, and I can't lie to myself. So let's get the obvious out of the way. It was a little bit bogus against Trump with 1 versus 3. They only fact-checked Trump. They didn't really fact-check Kamala as much as I think they should have.
But when one
we don't
candidate
have to
lies
fact check
more.
when
You
we're
don't
telling
have
the
to,
truth
yeah.
and telling facts.
And basically the only 2 times that they did fact check was we don't murder babies after 9 months, and Haitians aren't eating dogs in Ohio.
Well, Kamala Harris perpetuated the myth that Donald Trump said there are fine people on both sides, even though Politico came out and said that this is missing a lot of context.
Do you need to see the video?
when Trump said there are fine people on both sides, he was talking about two kinds of people. One were historians who wanted to keep the Robert E. Lee statue in place, and the other group were people who wanted to tear the statue down. So the Antifa, the left-wing individuals, and the historians. These were the two groups of people he initially were talking about. Now, the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists and the hooligans who came to interrupt, this was an outside group who came to Charlottesville to stir up trouble. So when people say that there are...
I just really have to stop.
So when
because
Donald Trump
you're
said-
referring to them as historians, when we're talking about people who chanted, Jews will not replace us,
But you're-
and neo-Nazi chants
think-
that were used in
but
World War II.
He's
You're
talking about
Charlottesville.
what it seems like is historians that were sympathetic to keeping the statues in public
And
view.
we're talking
is what
about
I
a
think.
statue of Robert E. Lee, a Civil War general.
But even the
Yeah.
historians that you're referencing, if they were actual historians, wouldn't you want those types of statues in something like a museum or somewhere where people can learn the historical context,
There
not
is
in the
no
public
right
And
side
let's
of
talk about what
racism.
those
If you-
historians did. They enslaved your people.
I think we've covered, just so you know, I think we've covered this part. Remember, the prompt is, I think
Kamala.
Harris won the
we
debate.
forgot about
Oh,
the
yeah.
already.
Yes, to be honest, I want to extend I have mad respect.
Absolutely,
For
same.
anybody here, any Trump supporter who will stand here in this room and say anything in support of the guy who gave that debate performance. Literally speaking as a Filipino person who for years, we have a play named Dog Eaters on us. It was dog eating and othering of meats were used to other us and to make us feel like some other kind of different dehumanizing thing because we were eating people's pets. And now they're putting it on Haitians. And now there's bomb threats in Ohio because of this ridiculous thing that he spewed because he got triggered because Kamala talked about how people were walking out of his crowds because he's bored and tired and senile.
And the main reason why I am sitting down is because Donald Trump took too much bait. I think that kind of performance was okay against Biden. And if you guys notice, a lot of the things he said against Kamala, he said against Biden about the abortion, the baby being killed after it's born. He never should have said that. About a lot of the points that he made against Biden, and he did it against Kamala too. But the thing is, Biden literally just fell apart and quote unquote died on stage, what we saw last time, and that's why they switched him out with Kamala. So I guess Trump I was expecting him to change his playbook. You have to go after her record.
Well, it's hard to go after her record when she's impeccable, right? We have
The only qualified person there.
A prosecutor, an attorney general, a senator, and a vice president. So for him to go after her, he can't go after her policy because it's good. All he can do is make the same old, she said it herself, the same old playbook, and that's what we saw. And she totally destroyed him. She came with facts. She also just pointed out just how ridiculous the things were that he was saying, to your point about the, eating dogs and all of that stuff. I mean, none of it was factual. It had already been released that none of that stuff was true, and he still put it
all it
forward.
does is
But I
demonize
respect you for
immigrants.
coming forward
I
and
also
admitting
feel
it.
like-
We're
I
gonna
also
pause
feel
here. We're gonna bring in our disagreeers.
So I would say that when I judge, my kids play sports, when I judge who won or who didn't win, I want it to be an even playing field, and I think it should be a fair contest. And I know you guys love Kamala Harris, and you think she has an impeccable record.
Kamala.
And
Kamala.
But CNN has pronounced it 12, 20 times on record,
we're
different
telling you.
ways.
We're telling you how to
just like
stop.
every other person. who probably has a
Semantics,
weird
you
name.
guys. Let's not get
Not
stuck.
semantics.
Let's go to
Yeah,
policy.
Can we
let's
just
hear the
pronounce
rest
your name
of
right,
this.
please?
Let's go past this and hear the rest of Sheila's.
So I think that there have been a lot of things that have been fact-checked by social media influencers and commentators like myself on Ms. Harris's policies and what she said as well. And there are certainly things that could have been fact-checked on that end as well. And I want to I too am an immigrant. My family escaped on the back of a pickup truck from Iran in 1985 while being shot at by border police. I spent a night in the Pakistani deserts. We were caught, and we had to escape, and it took 6 months for my family to come here not speaking English. We left everything behind, started from nothing, living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 8 people in it. The reason why I say that is, America is the greatest country on earth, and to erase its history instead of learning from it is what they did in China. Unburdening what has been.
Taking
It's not
down
Let me
erasing
just
history.
finish, you guys. Let me just finish.
Banning books
Unburdening what has
is erasing
been
history.
and looking forward to what can be is literally what was used by people trying to get rid of the old and bringing in the new world, like
Well, the
China
group of people
Communist
being
Party.
affected by those statues are telling you what it's doing to us.
Correct.
He's the one that
we're
suggested
talking
to go
a
into a
lot about
museum.
this statue,
Seriously,
but
can
we
we
do
talk
want
about
to hear
the
about the debate. Let's just switch back to the debate. If we want to talk about the statue again later, we totally can.
I don't think either one of of them won the debate. I feel like the only people that really lost were, other than them, was the American people. I imagine we can all kind of agree on that. Nothing was really said, nothing was really, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, but nothing ever actually gets done. I think as far as the debate goes, Trump dropped the ball on a couple things. The Medicare or Medicaid conversation or question that he received, he kind of dropped the ball on that one. But other than that, it was just a bunch of zingers and like back and forth and
all about ego.
putting your hand up to make sure that the other side knows that you're judging I'm judging you, Trump. Like it was more show than anything. Kamala handled herself. I'll give you that. Like Kamala did a lot better than a lot of people thought she did. I think that's why a lot of people are saying she won, because we all, she did better than Biden. And anybody that did better than Biden, it's like, hell yeah, we have a winner, guys. But at the end
We all
of the day,
agree that was a low bar.
Yeah.
We're gonna reset.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is an app and website that is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Their team of journalists believe that unbiased news should be the standard and not just the exception. So they report down the middle with facts, delivering news without bias, filter, or spin. Plus, their Media Mist tool allows you to discover news that's being underreported or not even reported at all by different sides of mainstream media. That's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. The work they're doing gives us a complete picture of the news straight from our phones and tablets with their app. Go to san.com/middleground or click the link in the description to check it out. By clicking that link, you're not just supporting this channel, you're also supporting a group of journalists that are raising the bar on news and focusing on serving you unbiased, straight facts. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now let's get into it.
Our next prompt, it will be played as a video. This is a quote from Trump from the debate.
They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it.
If you agree with that quote, step forward.
Oh, it's just this. Okay. From that quote, at least from what I got personally, was he was talking about the illegal immigrants that aren't being background checked, that are being let in. Personally to me, my grandparents and my mother are immigrants. They're not from here, and they came here and they worked very hard to get their residency and their citizenship, and they went through all the bells and whistles to get through here. And so they're letting people in. I mean, it's affected so many of my friends that live towards the border of San Diego, places like that. They are letting people in that are criminals, that are not being checked well, or at least not being checked at all. And I think that's what he meant. He kind of has a really sassy way of saying things, or kind of just, sometimes I feel like he's not very eloquent at times. And so he says things and people are like, well, what does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. That's at least the context that I'm getting it from. That's at least what I can see, and that's at least what's been proven, so.
I also feel that way. I feel like a lot of the people that are just being willy-nilly let in here they're passing multiple other countries just to get to America, to claim asylum in America. I don't blame anybody for coming here at all. If I was born outside of this country, I would want to do the exact same thing. Us as Americans, all of us, hit the lottery when we got born here. And if you've come here legally through the process, my issue is the people that are just being let in. Oh, they claimed asylum. Here's a bank card. Here's a cell phone. And by the way, show up to this court date in 3 years. Promise, right? Like pinky promise. And then they just let them go. They send them to whatever city, Chicago, New York. The people that actually live there are the ones in Colorado, where I'm from. We are the ones that are actually seeing this stuff and being affected by it, whether it's people driving on the road without license plates, insurance, don't know how to drive because they're coming from whatever country they're coming from. But every single person that comes in here illegally is being counted in the census. When you count these people in the census, that's going to give people more house seats, I'm pretty sure. And I don't want to misspeak.
No, you're
Hopefully
right.
a little truth bubble will pop up at the bottom. But they're getting house seats, they're getting electoral votes. These things matter when it comes to the election. That's the only thing I care about. I don't care if people are coming here legally and want to live a better life, want to have that American dream. That being said, like, you're taking away things, taxpayer money that all of us as taxpayers are paying that should be going to Americans, should be going to veterans. Veterans are, make up, I want to say less than 8% of the American population, and less than 2% of Americans join the military and volunteer to join our military forces. And the fact that we have homeless vets should not be a thing. And we're just giving this money to these people that come here illegally, don't play by the same rules.
I see a lot of nods. Do you believe that this is an intentional strategy? You talked about like the sense, how it affects the census.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, over 16 million people have come into this country illegally during this administration. And immigration actually is the thing that catapulted me from Democrat to Republican. I'm from Chicago. And as you know, we have the migrant crisis, thousands upon thousands. We're talking 50,000 illegal immigrants that just hit our city. And I actually did vote for Biden. I'll whisper and say that, not that proud to admit it now. But I remember when they first turned a school in my area into a migrant shelter. And it was the Wadsworth Elementary School. And they also turned South Shore High School into a migrant shelter as well. When they did that, I remember the protest. I remember going to these community meetings that they have about how they're gonna explain to you how immigrants need help. And I remember sitting there as a person who voted for Biden, and I'm just listening to these people, the aldermen, city council members, pro-immigrant groups. They come to lecture us black folk on the south side of Chicago. And they talk to us like we're stupid. These people are from Venezuela. They speak Spanish. They live in poverty. They need help. And that's why this facility in your neighborhood is being turned into a migrant shelter. So it's very frustrating with the Democrats, this sort of lecturing, this condescending tone that they use against you. I don't need to be lectured to about what people need. Black people in Chicago need help. Veterans, as you were saying earlier, they need help. Poor people need help. We have a lot of problems in our own community, and I respect people and I understand the passion and ambition behind people who come to this country. But to explain and lecture to me why I have to be quiet and accept it, that's never gonna happen.
I know that we have more to say, but I'm gonna bring in the disagreeers for time.
So I might let some of the people on my side even talk about Biden's shift to the right when it comes to immigration, more deportations in the Trump administration. That's not something that I'm particularly passionate about. I don't really believe in removing people who are fleeing political persecution or looking for a better life for their families. What I would say to the people that are worried about vetting or worried about who necessarily is in this country is increase the pathway to citizenship. Not only should we be able to vet who these people are, we'll be able to add them and actually fully understand what they're here for, what their motivations are. And if you want to garner those voters, you gotta capitulate to those voters. And I think Republicans can do that. A lot of Hispanics that come from there have conservative values. You shouldn't just write them off as people that can't drive or people that are not talented.
No, I'm not saying they're not talented. I'm just saying.
You're saying they might not even be qualified to drive a vehicle.
I mean,
that's kind of
No, Joe, I just want to
No,
quick.
go
I want
for
to
it.
just ask you a real quick question.
Yeah.
Can you please define what immigrants who are seeking asylum means?
So I'm political persecution, like you were saying, or somebody's going to murder them or whatever it is.
Okay.
I get, like, it could be 100% true. I'm not
So
like
are those
deep-
things
let him
currently?
finish.
I'm just asking. Are
But
those
you're
things,
assuming everyone is
Yeah.
coming here is like literally being shot at like my family was, or actually,
Yeah.
but when you
Okay.
see the videos,
Okay, yeah, but what
you can
about your
tell-
family? Let's
but
talk
you
about
can
your
tell.
family.
We
So
came
why aren't we
legally.
talking about the
We came
bipartisan bill
legally.
where
we
the
can't-
Republicans
if we're
had a
shouting
chance
over each other,
to
we
do
can't.
something
What else?
about
So Joe tried to answer your question. Why are you asking it?
I'm asking it because I have a lot of people in the Filipino-American community who seek asylum during the Marcos regime. I have a lot of different immigrant families, probably like yours in Iran, who's looked for asylum during the controversies and the tumult in Iran. And Trump, in his initial presidential election, wanted to ban Muslims from coming to America.
It was not a
It wasn't a
Muslim
Muslim
ban.
ban.
It was
It was
not
a travel
Muslim
ban.
Muslim
It was a
countries.
travel.
It was Muslim, you're right.
ban.
It was Muslim shithole countries,
our
which is what
question-
he said.
Just
He
going off
said
what you
it.
said, are they whole countries? Is Haiti or Somalia?
Are you really going to classify?
I'm just asking.
The term third world is offensive to me, bro. Because
Really?
you're talking about yes, you're talking about a subhuman.
No,
you're talking
it's not
about
that
people
it's a
who aren't as
subhuman.
developed as we are, so they're the third
The
world.
countries
Give me a break. Some of these
economically-
people have given you some of the
It's an
biggest
economic-
scientific
Eric,
innovations
I have
in the
one-
world.
So
Eric,
if you're
I have one quick-
stoning women after they've been raped
In the
hold on,
Bible, bro, not now.
I'm from
Joe,
Iran,
listen.
and it happens now.
I want to close the loop on Eric's point. Eric, are you saying that it's the U.S.'s responsibility to take people in who are seeking asylum?
I'm saying that Ronald Reagan said that the United States was a shining city on a hill, right? That's the basis of your guys' philosophy, right?
What are you saying?
I'm saying that this has been and has been forever a country of immigrants.
Why can't they stop at the other countries they stopped at to get here? That is
Where
my
are we
only
connected?
point.
Why can't they just go back to where they came from? Is that what you're saying?
Let's go to Zion.
Okay, I'm going to start out with saying that immigration is not my biggest issue. It's not. I think people have a right to come to this country. I think our country was founded off of immigrants, slaves even. But
And their own
if we
people.
want to actually talk about it, right? We can all agree that something at the end of the day does need to be done about immigration, whether it means it becomes more humane, whether it means we have a better vetting process, whether it means any of those things. But what you guys are failing to acknowledge is that the bipartisan bill was presented and they voted no, strictly, genuinely, because they didn't want to give Biden the W on that. That would be fine and all, like cool, whatever, but this isn't a game. This isn't like, you don't get to play with people's lives and where they live and what they're escaping from. You don't know what they're coming from. That ain't none of your business. Honestly, they don't owe you that. If they pass the paperwork and the test or whatever it is, they don't owe you an explanation on why they came here.
So I think it's really funny when Democrats, Kamala Harris supporters bring this up, because when people bring it up, they bring it up as this like big gotcha, like, oh my gosh, and partly, you know, you guys are right, like, okay, why would Republicans, you know, go back on this? So I do understand that part, but my question is, why did it take them to election year, a few months or 6 months before the election, I believe it was 6 months before the election, now they want to put forth this bill.
Definitely
If
a
the Biden
coincidence.
administration and now Kamala Harris wants to be president, I think it's completely legitimate to say, you were in office since 2021, Biden and Kamala, that's when they came in office. You waited until 2024 to put together this Republican bill. And might I just add, since Democrats are moving on the right on immigration, does it mean that us Trump supporters were right all along?
If you want to talk about when we were in office, then why is it when Trump was in office in his first year, his first 2 years in office, when he had a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate, and he had been raging about the immigration bill, and Mexico was going to pay for the wall, remember? Why didn't he do it? The only legislation that he passed was a huge tax cut for billionaires, and he made sure that people with mental illnesses could still get guns.
And when he was presented with
those
the
are
top-
literally
when
the
he was-
only two legislations
All
he's
right,
passed.
all right. I
Can I
got to cut you
respond
off.
now?
Let's hear from
Okay.
Sheila.
So imagine the level of gaslighting that you've let in 16 million people already. They're here, and then you say, and we want a border solution now. They are already here. It has already happened, and now you're claiming to say you want to solve it. They're already here.
And how is it affecting you?
I will tell you,
Sheila's gonna
I am a
answer.
taxpayer, and my taxpayer dollars, number one, are going to people who are not paying taxes and are not citizens and came here illegally. Okay, when you come here illegally, you have performed a crime. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I am a physician. I work at the county hospital. These people come literally with maps to come get free health care from the county hospital. They will walk across the border with a map to come get their health care and health services here. They have not contributed into that healthcare
Why does
system with
someone
their
have
taxes.
to contribute
If
to
you
Because
guys
there's a
receive
fine.
healthcare?
I love
No,
what
it's
you
not.
do.
It's not a
People that are
disagreement.
contributing.
It is
People
not
that
a
are contributing
disagreement
aren't getting
of
those
political beliefs.
resources.
It's a
There's no
disagreement
resources,
of your
Zion.
morality.
There are
That is
no.
a disagreement
I
of
am a
morality.
physician.
It's
Do
not
not,
this is
do not
bad.
question
Okay.
my morality.
I'm
Yeah.
questioning
Do
you.
not question my
time out.
morality.
Time out.
Question.
Time out. We cannot include parts where you're yelling over people. Your points will not be heard.
yelling.
Okay? There's a lot of overlap.
Gotcha.
We're going to end this part.
All right, so I just wanted to make 3 points. The prompt was, agreeing with whether criminals and folks like that were let into the country, right? You all are identifying resource issues, right? And so it's one thing to talk about the folks that are being let in the country and the types and the backgrounds or whatnot. It's another thing to talk about the resources, right? And so to your point where you're saying, the school was taken over, et cetera, right? That's a valid point, and I think that we have to, make sure we have an immigration bill in place that allows for a pathway. And so whether it was the last 9 days of an administration or the first 9 days of the administration, if there's a bill on the table that adds those resources to make sure our border is secure and make sure we have 1,500 more border personnel on the border, then why would that not be the thing that at least solves the issue of securing our border, right? We can talk about the resources and how we're going to do that, right? And how we're going to make sure we take care of people that are here, and if we're going to let more people in, right, how we're going to take care of those folks. But also, this administration isn't the first time where millions of illegal people crossed over the border. It's happened since the beginning of America, and it's continuing to happen because when there's an opportunity to pass something that will work, no one wants to do it because it becomes political instead of actually solving an issue.
So I have something just to bounce off of that. You
Make it
and
quick.
her are both correct with everything that you both said, and I completely agree. The issue is, it's like opening the door, letting a bunch of people in, then shutting it and going, hey guys, we don't have enough resources for this. Where do we get the money to do it? And we're all just supposed to be taxed to all hell until everything gets paid for. And that's my biggest issue as like, I'm not making millions of dollars every day. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a millionaire. I do private security contracting and I work for the rich people, you know, and I go in with MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, all these news agencies to these protests where all these issues are happening and nothing's being done. Anything that gets shown that could be crazy or wild to see on the news, certain news agencies aren't going to show you. So if I'm seeing this stuff in person and then I start seeing everything else online on YouTube, Fox News, whatever, CNN, doesn't matter, all I'm seeing is what they're showing me because I can't just go to every single state, you know, and go to the border, but I'm seeing actual Venezuelans, actual Haitian people, actual Somalians over in Greeley, Colorado, taking over every single job, and they're getting hired through these temp agencies that won't allow them to work full time, which is horrible for them specifically. That's not fair to anybody that came here thinking they're going to get a job and make American money. You know, like that's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the American people and the legal immigrants that came here that they can't get those jobs because now it's just taken over by temps.
Our next prompt is, my candidate has contradicted themselves.
Yeah, I'm very critical of Kamala Harris. I honestly don't think she's going to be the best president. I view voting as very harm reductive. So when it comes down to who's going to be in office, it's going to be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And I think that my goals are much easier to organize with a Kamala Harris presidency than a Donald Trump. So Kamala Harris, one of my biggest criticisms of her is she ran on many progressive platforms, especially early on in her presidential campaign in 2020 during the primaries. She has not stuck to many of those. She's actually gone to the right on a lot of those issues. She's trying to appeal to Republicans. She's entered Dick Cheney into our camp of support. These are people that I abhor. These are people that I don't think should have the respect of progressives, and she's trying to rally us all in against Donald Trump.
I really am happy that you did mention that because the media portrays it like, yeah, we have more Republicans on our side, Republicans who are supporting Democrats, but you're like, wait, these aren't the kind of Republicans I would like to be on our side. So I do think that's kind of nice not to just kind of have that like clickbait, oh, look, you know, like a
Same on
token.
both sides.
Same on both sides.
Well, I'll
too.
clarify, I don't want any Republicans on my side, I'm being honest. So,
Seriously,
gonna
like,
lie.
y'all can keep
Y'all
Dick
can
Cheney.
keep that.
Keep Dick Cheney over there, please. Please keep him.
I feel like he definitely has his way, and I feel like we can go back and everybody has said one thing that they've changed now, you know, and they obviously they're just like people like us. They're going to change and evolve, and their views and based on the life experiences, at least from what this country or what they go through, they're going to change. And I'm sure you can go back and you can look at things that he said that he has completely changed his stance on now. Like almost every single politician, Republican and Democrat, have said, you know, homophobic or racist things. Every single one.
Not every single one, babes.
I think the biggest one obviously is going to be abortion because
Yeah.
for me it's kind of like I am pro-life, but I do respect people's ability to have it done themselves. I've always said if they want to have an abortion, let them do it. I am pro-life for myself and for my family, or I am conservative values and principles. So first, to kind of being like I'm going to appoint Supreme Court justices to redo Roe v. Wade or send it back to the states. And then to do this flip of, I think he was interviewed about the heartbeat bill. And first he was kind of like, no, that's not long enough. And then the next day he said, wait, no, I agree with the 6 weeks because the Republicans got mad that he went back on what he said about abortion. So it is kind of annoying.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I don't believe Kamala has contradicted herself. Her principles have remained the same. She has always said secure borders, legal pathways to immigration. She's always said pro-choice. She's always, you know, been consistent with her opportunity economy where we build the middle class. And so, I mean, I think that if anything, you know, her policies are different, then that's an evolution, right? Like it's an evolution of the times that we're in. It's an evolution of changing circumstances. It's an evolution of changing demographics and what people want and need and all of that stuff. But as far as her principles and her platform, it's remained the same.
I feel the same way. I think that, when you hire a CEO for a company, and let's think of America as a major company, the company has different needs at different times. That's why sometimes you bring in different CEOs because of their strengths or their connections or their ability to make change in a certain sector. And so I believe that, America is a growing organism and is like a human in that sense, or a company in that sense, and it's going to require different decisions at different times. And so that's why I think that, you have to be flexible. As a business owner, I certainly have to be flexible, and so I think our commander-in-chief also has to be flexible.
What are your thoughts on Dick Cheney joining the tent?
Everyone that wants to come to the Democrats, we welcome you all, right? We need the votes.
Sure.
In order for us to really make the democracy work, where there are two sides, right? I think that both sides have to be able to understand compromise. You have to be able to work together with people that maybe you don't agree on abortion, but you agree on immigration. Maybe you don't agree on whatever, child tax credits, but you do agree on, make sure we support our veterans. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If we can agree on an issue, let's move it forward.
Just going off of the debate that they just had, she said, I own guns, Walz owns guns, we're not going to take your guns.
I never knew that.
No, right, but like 10 minutes later, not actually 10 minutes later, but like a couple days later, she does an interview where she's like, we're not going to take your guns, but weapons of war, we're going to take those. What's a weapon of war would be my main thing. Those are the things that affect me as a gun owner. Sure. I love being able to have the option to protect my family. If that's taken away and now I have to just run outside of my house if somebody breaks in, like, what are people, I feel so bad for people that live in California with the way that things are just criminal-wise, with people breaking into homes, stealing stuff. That should not be allowed. You should be able to defend yourself, and
I really want to respond to this.
If that was taken away, I don't know what I would do. I would definitely bury my stuff in a basement like John Wick, but like.
So when it comes down to the whole gun thing, I think everybody needs to just start being for real. As a person that grew up in deep down south in Louisiana, if you're talking about protecting your family, who is this group of people that is coming and knocking and banging down y'all's? What are you doing to bring that in your life, A? And B, if you didn't need the AR-15, and this, you're talking to a veteran, okay? I didn't really need to walk around with an AR, a veteran who built bombs. I didn't need to walk around with a doggone machine gun 24/7 to protect all of us. Like, it wasn't necessary and wasn't needed. And I most importantly, did not need to bring that home to feel like my house is protected. I'm not saying no guns, that we should take all guns. I feel like we can all agree at this point, something has to change and something has to be
Just in the way they regulate cars.
I was totally with you prior to COVID. I was like, why do we need assault rifles? Why do we need, machine guns? I was totally with you. And then when COVID happened, I realized that the progressives don't stop. First they said 6 feet apart. We said fine. Then they said wear a mask, and we said fine. Then they said take the kids out of school, and we were like, Then they said vaccine, we were like fine. Then they said another vaccine, we said fine. Then they said booster.
3 masks.
So the point is, my question to you on that, and the reason why I changed, is let's say the anti-gun lobby gets a win. Let's say they take away the assault rifles. Do you think that they will fully dissolve and say, okay, all other guns are fine? Or do you think that they're going to go after the next gun and the next gun until there's no more guns in America?
I think we are talking about the same consistent gun being brought to schools and causing mass destruction. I don't think they're talking about stripping and taking away all of you guys' guns. I'm just saying that they're proposing something needs to be done. And if you didn't need, we're not walking around with people chasing us down. I don't know, even in the hood, I don't know what y'all I grew up in Shreveport, still didn't need a machine gun to walk around in. And I'm talking about, that has one of the highest murder capitals in the country. You do not need a machine gun, an automatic rifle.
I think
But if we're getting caught up on specific gun types.
You've never needed it before. Let's be for real.
Okay, so we gotta put a pin in it because we're chasing specific issues. I want to ask, these are not talking questions. These are just raise your hand. So on this side.
Okay.
I know it's hard. Who here would be in support? The government should get involved with taking guns, certain guns, away from citizens. Raise your hand.
Is this gun regulation, or is this actually
yeah.
removing it from house?
Let's just say you're in support of some policy that would remove at least some guns from the possession of citizens. Raise your hand.
As a veteran, though?
Yes, because it's common sense.
I was deployed in Afghanistan.
All right, let's do this. Our next prompt. Harris doesn't understand the economy as well as Trump. Will our agreeers step forward?
For me, at least, I'm obviously probably a lot younger than the people on the show, but for me, the way that I see the economy going from the 4 years that she's been in office with Biden to the 4 years that Trump has been in office. You know, I saw, at least with my family and the people around me, the, economy prospered a lot more. You know, people my age have to wait on going to school because they have to work 2 jobs for 3 years to build that money back, because the way the state and the economy was in, their parents had to use their college fund over these past 4 years to keep afloat. And we didn't see that with Trump. You know, people were getting wealthier and people were benefiting more. And I just don't feel that she's really seeing those issues.
And you attribute this to the Biden-Harris administration?
Absolutely, because it's happened the past 4 years. My sister had to drop out of school due to the fact that it was just to this influx of money and inflation and everything and all the costs that it brings. There's just no, scholarships aren't scholarships anymore.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I disagree in the sense that we underestimate Kamala Harris way too much. And I think that the prompt, the question is she doesn't understand. Oh, she fully understands. And I think that the problem is us underestimating, because she understands that prices were lower with Trump. She understands that the grocery prices and food, going to McDonald's. I went to McDonald's one day, the next day I'm like, wait, a Big Mac wasn't this much under Trump. What's going on, right? Mm-hmm. I think she understands these things and that the American people are suffering. And she understands it to the point to where, she took one of his policies, that no tax on tips. She does what she does. She tells people what they want to hear, like the flattery language, it's going to be so much nice, and the money we're going to give you. But she knows exactly what she's doing.
Okay, so some of the things that you guys touched on, just about the state of the economy that was inherited when Kamala and Biden took over in office. I think we have to remember that they got a messed up economy. I think inflation went up 9.1% when he first came into office. And that's because every 4 years, you're gonna see the fallout from the next election, the next president. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what they received was due to what Trump did. What Trump is getting praising for, what you guys are praising for, the Obama administration set the playing ground for that. That's how it works. You only see the fallout from it once the next person is in office a lot of times, because it takes a couple years sometimes to see the results.
Real quick, I want to talk about the tax on tips, because that's something that I don't agree with. I didn't agree when Donald Trump proposed it, and I didn't agree when Kamala Harris supported it. Again, I'm somebody who's in favor of the working class, but taking taxes off tips is, again, something that is sold as a very good idea, but it doesn't actually help the people that it's propagated to help. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly because people who work wages where they require tips don't even meet the threshold to actually pay federal income taxes. So a lot of the times it's used to justify corporations or large businesses or even small businesses from exploiting workers that aren't being paid a living wage. They're actually relying on the generosity of customers that come in. Mm-hmm. And it's a policy that's meant to justify or make that system continue to happen. Talking back on the Trump economy, I don't think that the Trump economy was necessarily bad. I wouldn't say that that's because of the actions of Donald Trump. Within 10 days of him being inaugurated, the right was so excited to announce that the Dow Jones Act increased. All of the economists across the country were praising the state of the economy. It's not because of somebody who just got inaugurated 10 days ago. It's because of the economy that Donald Trump inherited.
And please forgive me, but someone who's been bankrupted 6 times, bankrupted casinos. Do you know how inept you have to be to bankrupt a casino? It's literally, the business model is, here, take my money. And he bankrupted multiple casinos, bankrupted the entirety of Atlantic City. Also, $25 million settled lawsuit for Trump University. Also, 34 felony charges, convicted on fraud, and can't do business in New York for 3 years. And you're gonna tell me I'm gonna trust this dude with some business?
Can I just respond to your point? I think earlier you brought
Yeah.
up a really good point when you were talking about students now not being able to afford to school and working, right? And I think that is a concern that whoever the president's going to be has to address.
Right.
But what I will say about the Biden administration is he's doing things to help my generation. For us, it wasn't a barrier to get to school. It's once we got our schooling, being able to now pay back the student loans. And so Biden is answering that, right? And so I think she's VP to Biden. She understands those those issues, I think I would trust her more to figure out how we're going to support students that have to work all these jobs before they can even get to school. But she's paying attention. But at least we know that she was in an administration that paid attention to those concerns, and Trump hasn't.
No.
Okay, let's reset. Trump is more extreme to the right than Kamala is to the left. Will the agreeers step forward?
It's the one thing that I wanted to say in this debate because in 2016 she was rumored to be very hardcore against cannabis. And when in fact I did my research, I found out that she was only convicted 45 people. You know, she was demonized on her views of cannabis. And for me, that's a big issue because it's my medicine.
Do you see her as far left, though?
I see her not left enough on that issue. Like for me, descheduling is the way to go. It's not rescheduling, it's decriminalizing and descheduling because it's a plant.
We can smoke afterwards then.
Nice!
Just joking.
I want to move away from cannabis and go back to like the political spectrum and landscape. I think that Kamala Harris definitely could be a lot more progressive in areas where originally she might have been. The biggest criticisms from progressives, right, is her role as a DA and as an attorney general. So there were a lot of people that were incarcerated under his administration. I don't know why people pretend like San Francisco was a rehabilitative justice city when it was very retributive under the Kamala Harris run under there. But when it comes to Donald Trump, like, sure, you could say a lot of his policies are not as far right as maybe some of his peers, like a Ted Cruz or like the Heritage Foundation.
Or J.D. Vance.
He has like completely dismissed Project 2025 multiple times. Does that mean that he won't actually enact a lot of those policies? Who knows? We'll see if he does get reelected. But I think his rhetoric specifically is very far right. And that's when we see things like immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country, when he's saying things like they're bringing in rapists, they're bringing in terrorists. That type of language has a very strong byproduct when it comes to how those communities are treated in different states.
We're eating dogs now, apparently.
And I think too, just like his prioritization of a white nationalist group, he might not say that entire thing, but when you're inviting people like Nick Fuentes to the White House, when you are hosting white nationalists and making it a comfortable space for them, that has really detrimental effects, especially on the communities that those seem to target. And I'm not saying every Trump supporter is a white nationalist or these people are super racist, but Trump definitely capitulates to those groups. And that's something that is very, very extremely right.
Trump is certainly more extreme. I mean, he doesn't have policies, right? He has rhetoric. He has, you know, his just being, you know, this huge voice that loves the rallies, that loves the attention, but he's not putting forth policies. He's only speaking to those people that you know hate other groups, that are trying to make America great again, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. He's not giving policy that's advancing the country. He's speaking to groups of folks that honestly I think want to return us back to slavery, or at least that time period, right? That's an extreme view.
To summarize it completely, right? Not every Trump supporter is a white nationalist, but every white nationalist is a Trump supporter.
And also,
Precisely.
Andrew Gillum said it best. He may not be a racist, but the racists think he's a racist.
Precisely.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
Okay, so I love this topic because this was actually one of the first things that made me start thinking differently. I remember in school, my professor, my teacher, whatever, was going crazy about Trump being so evil and so racist, and he hates black people. And I remember I was kind of like, okay, I'm supposed to be a Democrat, and I raised my hand and I asked, okay, if Trump is so racist, why did he put forth the First Step Act, which let thousands upon thousands of black men out of prison? Most of these black men were in jail for petty drug crimes. And under Trump, obviously it was bipartisan. He worked with Democrats. He reached across the aisle to make sure that this happened. So the First Step Act was gigantic when it came to criminal justice reform. Compare that to Kamala Harris, who put an innocent black man in prison. His name is Jamal Truelove. No one talks about it. He was in prison for 7 years, and he was on an interview with Vice News. And in that interview, he said, Kamala came to my sentencing and she acted like it was a celebration that I got convicted, because she just wanted somebody to throw in jail. And someone mentioned slavery and he wants to take us back to slavery. But I believe in 2011, the courts came forward to tell Kamala Harris that the prisons in California are overcrowded, specifically in San Francisco. But Kamala wanted those people to stay in prison so that they can be used as cheap labor to put out the California wildfires.
Did she not go back and speak on that and apologize and correct her mistake and say that? She admitted the way we went about that was maybe not the correct way. But that
She can admit
You are
mistakes.
trying to focus in on the most, on a minuscule part of her character. Like, you're trying to, like, paint her out to be this person that is the complete opposite of what she showed us to be. And, like, I don't know. We're talking about somebody that at least had tried to do prison reform versus somebody that believed 5 little innocent black boys deserved to be put on death row.
Okay, so at the time, if you were in the 1990s, crime was very high, higher than what it is right now. And obviously, if you were listening to the fact that 5 people brutally raped a woman, and she couldn't even testify because she was so bloodied and bruised. She couldn't even show up in court to say, these are the people who did it. So obviously back then, we don't have cell phones, we don't have Google or iPhones or none of that. And you're like, man, that's crazy. I can't believe
It doesn't mention race in it either.
It doesn't mention race. The only thing he knew that these were 5 people who raped and brutalized someone, and they confessed to it. I know later they were exonerated, but they confessed.
Do you not
They were
understand how
coerced.
the
In the beginning, they
industrial
confessed.
prison system
But
works?
They were
guys,
literally
wait,
coerced.
just wait.
You, out of all
I agree.
people,
No, no.
other than me and her,
Listen, I wanna-
sitting in this
I
panel,
wanna agree
should
with you.
absolutely know what
Wait,
goes on
wait.
when
Yeah,
we go in those
you should
interrogations.
absolutely
rooms.
know what goes
Race
on.
has come
can't
up.
keep that.
This-
One second. I have to.
we gotta close the loop. We've heard a lot about race. Something that came up in the first half of this that I want to hear this side respond to is I've heard the claim that not all Trump supporters are racist, but all racists are Trump supporters.
I'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, so would you also agree that all Hamas supporters are Democrats?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think so.
I don't care.
Not at all.
That's different.
Are the Republicans?
I'd love to
They're
talk about the
different.
genocide.
They're
Let's talk about
They have
that.
different-
Please
that's
talk
a different
about
area.
that.
Please
Who's
just
burning
support
the flags? Are the Republicans
Sheila,
burning the
respectfully
flags?
though, I would
Respectfully,
say
you want to
They
do the
have more
whataboutism, we
conservative
can do
views.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
quiet. Respectfully, that's not an answer to this claim. I
Correct.
want to hear a response to their claim that all racists support Trump.
Let's say each side has their extremists. Would we agree to that? And each side is not proud of their extremists. Would we agree to that?
I don't think extremists would identify as Democrats, where
Correct.
white nationalists would identify
We're talking
as
about white
Republicans.
supremacy.
We're talking about KKK.
Okay, let's talk
Okay,
about the
so-
KKK. So in 2018, how many members were there in the KKK? How many
I
members
don't-
are in the
Why
KKK?
I
would
don't
it matter?
know. I
Because
don't
it
study
still
the
exists.
KKK.
One is too many.
No,
Are
listen
you
to
Too
me.
many.
Listen to me.
What's the larger point?
Screaming
you're
doesn't help.
Oh,
So the
Christ.
larger
Oh my
point
God.
is there's 5,000 members in 2018 in the KKK with their little tiki torches marching around town doing their thing. Now, the greater threat to me, again, somebody who escaped socialism, is the Socialist Democrats of America, who are well-funded, who are backing the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars, and who are passing legislation in this country.
That's
So
a
to
bigger
me,
threat for you?
That
That's a
is a
threat.
bigger threat to me.
Well, you know what the
Absolutely.
Walk
KKK
around
is
in my
threatening me
skin.
with?
Walk
Ben?
around in my skin.
Lynching.
I'm getting in the
I
middle.
know.
Really, in your real life,
Me
you
too.
would-
Yes, I'm from Louisiana.
Real quick, show of hands. Who wants to acknowledge that there are extreme people in their party that they're not proud of? Raise your hand.
The conservative Democrats.
Absolutely.
Yeah, conservative Democrats.
No. In your party.
No.
There's,
Oh, so you're saying like Dick
Joe
there's no
Manchin.
crazy people
Dick
on the
Cheney's a
left or
Republican.
the
No, no,
right.
no,
Yeah, Dick
but
Cheney's a Republican.
I feel like that's
They're crazy people on the left, they're not
I feel like
Democrats.
that's a disingenuous answer. What I'm asking is, raise your hand if you take ownership that there are people further than you on your side of the political spectrum that you're not proud of in your party.
There's extremes on both sides, for sure.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, thanks. All right, our next prompt is, there are policies on the other side that I agree with. Agree or step forward?
I certainly don't agree that guns should be taken. Not that any Democrat has ever said that, but I think that's sort of like what Republicans think, and I don't believe on it, and I don't think most Democrats believe we are taking guns or even completely banning all guns, because there are security issues, or it's being able to use them and recreationally, et cetera. So I don't believe in that, and again, I don't think Democrats are saying that, but that's what we're portrayed as.
I agree with what the Biden administration, that they put in the PACT Act. I think that's great for veterans. That's my main shtick, is we need to do more for vets. There's not enough stuff being done for veterans that needs to be done, and at some point we need to hit the pause button and say, screw everybody else, we need to fix America. We need to lock the doors, figure everything out, get everybody up and ready, and then start opening the doors, letting people in. But
I heard that Biden was really good with labor, I think the NLRB, don't quote me on that, I think that's what it's called, but they said he was doing a lot of good things for labor and stuff. So even when I was like, okay, do I really want to move from Biden to Trump, I had to really think about it. But that was one thing that I said, okay, I'll give Biden something, because I like to give credit where credit is due. Like, okay, that was a good thing. I wish they talked more about that, and maybe it would have helped him before he dropped out.
As far as for me, like, I disagree almost entirely with the Republican Party platform, and I disagree with the majority of the Democrat Party platform. I think both parties really seek to protect capital interests and protect wealthy. So those are some things I really would disagree about, because I care more about the American people, especially the working class. So we probably have a lot of similarities there. But when it comes to Republican policies, I really think Project Warp Speed was great, especially to make sure that we do get some sort of infrastructure protecting from the spread of COVID. So getting vaccines in record time was very impressive, that I do give Trump the credit to. Don't know how much y'all might like that, but I do give him the credit.
Take it. Cool. Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I just have trouble understanding sometimes what the policy is on the other side. Like, up until very recently, Vice President Harris's website was selling T-shirts and actually had no policies written on it. And so when asked about her policies, like when they asked, are Americans better off now than they were 4 years ago, she'll just punt the question and start answering something else. So for me, I would like to know what the policies are like actually. And again, a lot of the stuff that she had said were her policies, now she's come over to the right a little bit, which I think is a good thing. I think a lot of people should be coming over to the right. But I would like to have a list. I would like to know exactly, and actually they just polled American people. 70-something% of people, this was yesterday, on both sides said they're confused about what Vice President Harris's policies are. So on both sides. And so I would, before saying, do I agree or do I not agree, what are the policies?
I looked before we even started this. They're there. I mean, the policies are on there, right? She's talking about expanding the child tax credit. She's talking about getting the border plan back on track. She's talking about the opportunity economy. She's talking about supporting business owners. She's talking about making sure we have a middle class, right? I feel like most of us are probably, not to make an assumption, are probably in the middle class. She's talking about helping us to elevate us, right? She's talking about taxing people that make like millions of dollars, right? And making sure people that make $400,000 and below their taxes aren't increased. And so it's there, and I think it would be beneficial if people did read it, right? Because there are good things in there, whether you agree with the candidate or not. She's trying to make sure that we everyday folks are able to have and live and sustain ourselves. And so
okay, so on her website there is a policy to give first-time home owners and first-time home buyers $25,000, and I would assume you guys would think that's a good thing, right? The point I would like to make is a lot of Democrats, they prop this up as a really good thing. Like, look at all the money she's going to give to these people. First of all, where is this money going to come from? That's a fair question. Secondly, these are for first-time home owners and first-time home buyers. In 2008, between 2008 and 2011, the housing crisis affected 53% of black people. These are people who already have a house. And these people were affected by predatory lending from banks. We're talking BMO Harris, we're talking Wells Fargo, and we're talking Bank of America. These people were really affected during the housing crisis of 2008 to 2011. So what will Kamala do to help those people? Because they already have a house. So I think that a lot of times when you throw out these flattery things, it sounds nice, but when you think about it, it really doesn't benefit the people that actually need help. I also remember during the housing crisis, Barack Obama, he bailed out the big banks and the airlines.
Yeah, very
we also have to remember that Kamala Harris did not take on the big banks. This is something that she pushes, and I admire that there are people who, they talk about it and they bring it up like, look at this strong black woman taking on the bank. Sorry, guys, she didn't do it. What she did was she brought them before the Senate, but she didn't prosecute them, and she didn't send anyone to jail, any of these big bank CEOs who were screwing over majority black people and scamming them on these loans. But when Donald Trump, when he first came to office, the banks, for the first time, their interest rate went down to 2.9%, and that's for over 30 years on home loans. So people who had a hard time during the housing crisis, the crash back then, they will benefit from that. So that's something that I really think we have to remember when it comes to Trump and when it comes to Kamala, like who's really putting money in your pocket.
Yeah, and I think that was a great criticism, especially of Kamala Harris, who's endorsed by a lot of Wall Street, endorsed by a lot of corporate interests. But
The alternative to that is not Donald Trump. And the reason why I'm on the Kamala side isn't because, again, I believe in everything about Kamala Harris. I'm very critical, but I do recognize if I'm comparing two people, one of which is going to be the executive of the country, I want the person that is going to be more comfortable for the working class. Not that either of them are going to be amazing for the working class, but when Donald Trump passes something like the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, might sound good in the title, might sound good when he talks about the taxes that will reduce for the working class. Those taxes are set to expire in 2027. And all of the gains that are happening for the people that are in the 1% are still going to continue.
The last prompt is, no matter who wins, we'll be okay.
I have some conditions, the reason why I stood up. Me personally, I'm gonna be okay. Yes, I'm disabled, but I am a white dude. I present very sit-hes. I'm somebody that regardless of who's gonna come in, I'm gonna have a pretty okay time being able to adjust to that. As far as like the rest of the country, I think there's a lot of people in marginalized groups that are going to be heavily affected by a Trump administration. And even a Kamala Harris administration, there's still going to be a lot of problems that we need to really fight for.
So even if Kamala is elected, she has a horrific record, and we're still here now. So I think that things it won't be the way I want them to be, but this idea that the world's going to explode, I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'll just be very disappointed that someone like her won, but I don't think democracy or the world's going to completely go away.
I agree. As a cisgendered white male, I don't think it's as crazy as everybody makes it out to be. I think everybody picks their own tribes that they want to be a part of, and everybody wants to, argue their point and this, that, and the other. But I think the government, a lot of Americans think the government is not where it needs to be. They think that it's corrupt, and that I don't think that's going to change unless something crazy happens. But even then, as Americans, we are all very privileged to be here. And I don't think the world's gonna end, because everything's gotta keep going. Everybody's gotta get their Coca-Cola, candy, whatever it is. And I don't think that's gonna stop anytime soon.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I feel like I've been affected personally. It was weird for me to see that, everyone talks about them, and obviously they're real people, but it's really weird to see that it affects your own lives. COVID was the first thing where it's wow, these people's decisions really do touch everybody's lives. So I feel that it's very important that it made me have that self-awareness and realization that these people's decisions and where we put these people is going to affect our daily lives in a sense. And that makes me feel then there is some importance, and we could be okay or not be okay based on who's there and who leads us or who makes those decisions or who is in that room at that given time when something is voted for. That's all very important, and those things do change our lives.
So for me, it's two different buckets. It's domestic policy and it's foreign policy. And as somebody who's come first generation myself from Iran and also who has family living in Israel, I just feel like this appeasement policy of the left, whether it was Obama or whether it was the Biden-Harris administration, the appeasement policy of the Middle East does not work. Since the last 3.5 years, by either direct payments or removing sanctions on Iran, Iran has been enriched by $150 billion, which is fueling all of these proxy wars, whether it's Hamas or the Houthis or Hezbollah in the north, and is causing real life death on both sides, right? So I feel like this appeasement foreign policy thing is absolutely a disaster, and that's one of the main reasons why I don't think we will be okay, because it is going to affect American lives. If there is a war there, which we've inched towards many times, it will be Americans. It will be real ground boots on the ground. Domestically, economically, I think that clearly we're not better off right now than we were 4 years ago. And I think these liberal policies, whether it's just this overspending that just increases inflation and touches each and every one of us, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, is real. Secondly, I think that a lot of the policies that the left has that again are just wild. A lot of the gender transition in minors, as a plastic surgeon, I see it. And I think that that's a huge mistake. I think trying to separate kids from their parents or not having to get parental consent for transitioning a minor. The school has to call me when they want to give my kid Tylenol, and Newsom passed a law, a kid over 12 doesn't have to involve their parents in the state of California if they want to gender transition, and I think that's nuts.
Ridiculous.
So,
That's ridiculous.
so I think that morally, trying to remove God, trying to talk down the nuclear family, which has been shown to give stability to kids, and really playing on people's mental health issues is going to be a disaster for this country.
There's no choice in this election. There isn't. You say two people, no. There's only one choice. Because for me, like I said, January 6th is disqualifying. You can sing all the hymns you want and call them hostages or whatever you. These people brought a Confederate flag to the Capitol, and he defends them to this day. How does that even? He's talked about destroying the Constitution. Project 2025 is written by everyone from his former administration. Project 2025 would eliminate public school education. Do you want to talk about extreme?
I have done multiple deployments. I left this country to go serve, and I came back with less rights than I had. I don't have another 4 years to gamble some of my rights. I just don't. And I don't care if Trump is saying that he does not support Project 2025. He's a liar. We've already said he's a liar, he's a businessman, a con man, whatever you want to call it. I don't have the time as a woman to play around with my health to get even less healthcare, access to healthcare for women's rights. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I just don't have the time to play with it. And so I feel like if you were really backing up a lot of the things that you were saying, like, it's easy to, like, you're contradicting yourself. Like, you're going back and forth.
As a queer black person, my future is only safe under a Kamala administration. Amen. Trump has already shown with his Supreme Court choices, with the decisions, with his support of Project 2025, that he is willing to and has taken away rights from whether you're a woman, whether you're black, whether you're LGBTQ, and that's only going to erode under his administration. So I think if we want to be safe, Kamala's the only choice.
That's where we're going to have to end our discussion. I see you all. We're all Americans. We have to acknowledge that.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see where this election goes, but I'm really grateful for all of you to come, share your experiences, share your point of view. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord.
I'm gonna go take my platitudes and stick them where the sun don't
Thank you so
shine.
much. You were really nice to talk to you.
I know. Yeah, I love the conversation.
Hey, nice to meet you.